Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100k subscribers, so your subscription would be much appreciated, but it is hot takes, you know what it is, so let's just get into it. Barring any other freak accidents, the Suns will coast to the championship. Well, first of all, factoring in the freak accident that you were referring to, which is of course Kevin Durant slipping on the court during a warm-up, the timetable in which he comes back and the amount of games that he's going to be able to actually get reps with the Phoenix Suns, that's really going to be a huge factor in determining how far they go. Because let's say they make it past the first round, I think you could argue that the first round is enough reps that you start to get somewhat experience with the team, and the talent can override the fact that, again, these players have barely played together. The fact that they haven't played together is a bigger concern than I think people give it credit for. I talk about the deadline acquisition thing all the time, but also it's Kevin Durant, yada, yada, yada. But coast is probably a ridiculous term to use here. I think that's absurd to suggest. And if they get an unfavorable first round matchup, they probably will lose that just due to inexperience with playing together. Not because they don't have experience as in general, but not having played together going into a matchup that's not favorable. Like right now they have the Clippers in round one. I think the Clippers, just given that so many of those players have played together for so long, could eclipse the Phoenix Suns. I could also see them going to the finals, of course. It's definitely well within the realm of possibility, but the lack of on-court reps they've had together does lead for cause to concern. There is no team in the West that can or will beat Denver in a 7-game playoff series. Barring injuries, Denver makes the finals. I do think Denver has a very strong case to make it out of the Western Conference. In fact, they are my pick to win the West. And I do feel as though that Nikola Jokic and the MVP debate over the last few years has kind of overshadowed the fact that, like, when Denver's healthy, they are a scary basketball team, especially if you're getting a really good version of Jamal Murray. You're, of course, getting a much better version of Michael Porter Jr. than what you had when you made the Western Conference Finals in 2020. A much better version, or even Aaron Gordon in general, because I'm pretty sure he wasn't on that team at that point, if I'm remembering correctly. Pretty sure. I'm really bad. My memory is getting worse and worse. But anyways, this Denver team is scary, and they are my pick to win the West. That said, they are a team that's susceptible to unfavorable matchups. That's really the reason why I would have them losing in the finals, because I don't really think there's a favorable matchup that will be coming out of the East. But yeah, the West is not really on a strong foot right now. Phoenix is probably the biggest threat to them, and like I mentioned in the previous take, there's reasons to not really entrust in them right now. They need to get rid of the play-in. A team that has underperformed the whole regular season does not even deserve a chance to be knocked out of a legitimate does not even deserve a chance to knock out a legitimate playoff team with one good game of basketball. See, that argument would make sense if there was some huge difference between the 7 seed and the 10 seed. But other than, like, I think in one conference, there's like a 4-game difference in wins, but everything else is the matter of just a few games. So I think it's pretty ridiculous, especially this year, to frame it as a legitimate playoff team versus some loser team. Because, like, for example, in the in the Eastern Conference right now, the 7th seed is the Miami Heat. They have 39 wins. The 10th seed is the Chicago Bulls. They have 34. It's a difference of 5% win percentage. And then, like, even the Atlanta Hawks at the 8th seed only have 35 wins, so it's literally a 1-game difference between the 8th seed and the 10th seed. And then in the West, I believe it's even more ridiculous. 3 teams have exactly 35 wins. 2 of them are 35 and 36. The Lakers are 35 and 37, and they're just outside, so they don't even count. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong metrics here. So 2 teams that are 35 and 36, 36 and 37, and a 36 and 36. These teams are games apart. This is not a legitimate playoff team versus a team that's underperformed the whole regular season. In other years, there's a possibility for this to happen, but I don't think it really has to any level of extreme. There's not been a 7th seed and a 10th seed that has like a 15-game difference or anything like that, as far as I can recall. So I don't agree with you. And I was very anti-play-in tournament initially, but I've turned a new leaf. I'm quite a fan, actually. Memphis will be exposed. Their half-court offense is not up to par as one would like. Yeah, Memphis does have a lot of half-court offense issues that concern me, which it feels like they shouldn't, but they still do. Dylan Brooks is there, so that's maybe why. But that said, their defense is as solid as it gets. Of course, their fast break offense is phenomenal, and Ja Morant really elevates his game when the playoffs come around. So, I mean, it would depend. With the word exposed, it implies that people think they're going to go super far. I mean, I don't think there's anyone that would be shocked if they were a first round or second round exit, depending on the matchup. So, like, I don't know that they'll be exposed. They will probably lose in the second round, would be my guess. The Sixers are not contenders. That's a ridiculous take. They just simply are. Especially, I believe they've been the best team statistically since the turn of the calendar year. Their defense and offense has been ridiculous. They have an absurd win percentage. Bulls finally got their first win against the Sixers in the Joel Embiid era, though, so that's nice, with Joel Embiid actually playing. Just had to point that out. But the Sixers are contenders, obviously. Do they have things about them that make them a little shakier and harder to pull for or predict to win a series, like James Harden's inconsistencies, lack of bench depth, lack of real strong perimeter defense, and Doc Rivers? Yes, all those things are true. Not contenders? Ludicrous. Another Sixers take for you. If the Sixers don't make the Eastern Conference Finals or Finals, they will lose both Embiid and Harden within 2 weeks. Harden in the offseason and Embiid right behind him. I don't know about that. I don't know that Embiid would see Harden leaving and immediately jump ship, but maybe give it a year or two. Lord knows the Sixers would stick with Embiid if he was willing to stick with them. Harden, I believe he's a free agent this offseason, and for some reason there's rumors about him going back to Houston, which I find to make no sense for either party, other than James Harden wanting to get Houston strip clubs back in his life. But overall, I don't think I would blow it up. I don't think James would really leave. I think he's found himself a good spot to be to win a ring in his career, and he's going to try and do that. I do think maybe 2-3 years Joel Embiid's not in a Sixers jersey, but he is right now and probably will be after this year. Jaden McDaniels goes top 5 in a 2020 redraft. I actually went through and looked at the draft, and I disagree. I would have him going number 6. There is Desmond Bane. There is both of the Tyrese's, Maxey and Halliburton. And then, of course, right. So then there's Ant and LaMelo, who I'm taking over Jaden McDaniels. So those 5 would go over J-Mac, but I would definitely take him at 6. And here's the media take of the video that has nothing to do with basketball, for if anyone gives a crap what I care about movies and TV and shit. Marvel has not fallen off completely like most think, and will bounce back from a mediocre phase 4. They're just going through a transition phase and need time to figure out how to best change things up without the likes of Cap and Iron Man. Well, first of all, what you mentioned at the very end there is kind of the problem. The MCU and Marvel's characters, they just don't have heavy hitters like Cap and Iron Man, and I really don't know that there's a way to create them again. And the problem is, really the real issue with Phase 4 is it feels like they're scrambling to put those characters together without putting in the work and the time. Like, if they're trying to recreate anything remotely resembling what Endgame was to any degree, the part of the reason that those movies hit so hard is that we've had a decade of buildup. Like, I was 8 years old when I saw Iron Man in theaters, and I was an adult. I was 18 when I saw him, spoiler alert, die. And to have been with a character for 10 years for multiple movies, it makes something like that hit a lot harder. Not to mention those are just really strong and interesting and overall pretty consistently well-written characters throughout the entire MCU, and those options just don't exist anymore. They also have the unfortunate circumstance of you really can't do like alternate reality versions of those characters. Like, I realize that Sam Wilson's Cap is going to be there. Not going to be the same as Steve Rogers and Chris Evans' performance of that character. There's no replacing Iron Man. I don't even think they'd bother attempting that. So there's that. But moreover, like the thing I previously mentioned about it being rushed, all these movies feel like they're incomplete. They really feel like it's almost like the MCU movies have become like what AAA video games are now, where they release and they aren't fucking done yet, but they were insistent on getting it out at a certain deadline and just didn't really give a shit about the quality of the product, because those industries typically have a loyal fan base, like CD Projekt Red, or that's just the first one I think of because of Cyberpunk. They have the precedent and the fan base that will buy their games. Same thing's kind of going with the MCU, where they're relying on people being like, it's the MCU, I gotta check it out, and then releasing movies where the CGI is like 80% done. And CGI is the big thing, because a post went viral on Twitter of a scene from Captain America 1 where he just existed in a physical room, and people were like, holy shit, this is the real MCU. This was groundbreaking. They're in a room. It's not just a bunch of actors surrounded by green screens with half put together costumes that are half CGI otherwise. And the reason they do this is the CGI visual effects is not unionized. Other industries, makeup, set design, all that stuff in Los Angeles is unionized. And that means that visual effects are just the, easiest bang for your buck and easiest to exploit employees in the entire industry. So that's why the MCU makes all these movies entirely CGI. And it's really shitty, and seeing it repeatedly, it's kind of hard to avoid knowing that abuse of power and strength within the industry is there, and it makes me want to support it less, and people have been supporting it less. I do think Kang is really good, although I feel like they wasted him in this movie in a way, in Quantumania. And yeah, I just don't like the direction it's going, and I don't think they're going to turn it around. I don't think it'll ever have the magic that it used to. Anyways, that's it. Shout out to Rudy for editing the video, and goodbye.